Apostle Paul wrote 13 letters contained in the New Testament, 14 if we consider Paul to be the author of the book of Hebrews as well. That means this one man is responsible for over 2/3 of the entire New Testament. Of those 13 letters, only one stands apart from the rest as his magnum opus, Paul's letter to the Roman church. Romans is unique from all other books of the Bible in that it lays out God's plan of salvation through Jesus Christ for all of humanity. So when we read the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we get the narrative of Jesus' birth, his life and ministry, his death, his resurrection. And these are critical, they're foundational for our faith, but it's only in Romans that the gospel is unpacked for us in regards to the work of Christ and how it translates to our lives today. So honestly, the book of Romans is the key that unlocks the beauty of the rest of Scripture. So once you've read and digested this book, the other books of the Bible, both Old and New Testament, become much clearer and more vivid. Theologian F.F. Bruce said, "There's no saying what may happen when people begin to study the letter to the Romans. So let those who have read thus far be prepared for the consequences of reading farther. You have been warned." Romans covers subjects such as man's condition, sin, grace, truth, homosexuality, predestination, submission to authority, tolerance, race relations, and so many other topics that are still culturally relevant to us today. This should not be daunting to us as believers though, but give us hope because the creator of the universe not only lends his voice to such topics, but demonstrates his love for us in the midst of a very messy culture. The first chapter of Romans sets the tone for everything Paul would write about as he moved forward. For Paul, it's all about the gospel, his life, his relationships, and his ministry, all driven by the gospel. Bo Schembechler, the University of Michigan's historic football coach, once said, "Football is all about the team, the team, the team." In Romans 1, Paul is similarly crying out what life is all about, the gospel, the gospel, the gospel. But the gospel, the good news message, is that our sin did not gross God out to the point where he turned away from us, but instead, it caused him to respond with love by sending his son Jesus to rescue us. And that really good news, that gospel message, is why Paul would utter the phrase that the rest of Romans is left to expound upon in Romans 1:16. "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes."